What's going on, everyone? This is Zach from Clutch Crew Sports, and here I am today, guys, with my very first college football 2022 season previews. I'm going to be looking at each of the major conferences and ranking the teams in order from worst to best, how I think they will do in the 2022 season, and we're going to start with the American Athletic Conference in the first episode of the series. I am a USF Bulls fan, so could be a little bit of bias on where I put USF's rankings. But I mean, I watch this conference a lot, so I do know some things about it. I see all these teams play each other. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this. You might be asking why I'm wearing a hockey jersey in this episode. I'm recording this much ahead of time when it'll be released. So the Tampa Bay Lightning just won Game 6 against the Rangers, so I got my Tampa Bay Lightning jersey on. USF hat. And yeah, I know those two things don't go together, but had to show support for the Lightning and USF since they're in this video. So with that being said, guys, let's start ranking these teams. So at number 11, I've got Temple. They finished 9th in the American last year. They only went 1-7 in the conference. Temple's just they used to be a pretty good team in the American, but they've fallen on hard times. And I also have I'm going to be looking at the standings from last year and the schedule for this season, and then I'm going to get on to more team-specific stuff. So looking at their schedule, they've got all their non-conference games at the start of the year and then all of their conference games at the end of the year. The key game for them to look at, maybe, I would say home against USF. I think that's one of their best chances of winning a conference game this year, is against home at USF. They lost to USF last year, but they get them at home this time around. I think it's not the end of the season, so they might not have given up completely, but that's a key game for Temple, I think. In 2021, I'm looking at recruiting rankings in the American from a few years ago, just because the current freshmen probably aren't going to have as big of an impact. And then if you look too far back, those players might be gone, or it's just, who knows? That was so long ago. But so in 2021, out of the American, they were 10th out of 11 teams in their recruit rankings, and I've got for their program status, they're under a rebuild right now. There's no question about it. But they do need to keep their talent. They've lost some guys to the transfer portal. That's a big thing in college football now, is guys jumping around, leaving like we've never seen before. So they need to keep their talent at Temple, but they're also under a rebuild. They've got a new head coach, Stan Drayton from Texas. He's going to be key for their success in the rebuild. They have a new head coach, so I think that's an important storyline with Temple, seeing how he does in this first season. A lot of the newer coaches in the American have kind of struggled in their first season as head coach, and their key player is going to be DeJuan Mathis, quarterback. He originally was a Georgia guy, transferred, obviously didn't get the chance to start there, so he went to Temple. He's going to be a key player to watch for them. But Temple, just not a good team. They were tied for last year, and I've got them dead last this year. So at number 10, I've got Tulane. A lot of T schools in the American: Temple, Tulane, Tulsa. It's easy to mix them up if you're not a big fan of the American. But Tulane last year won another 1-7 team, 2-10 overall. They had the hurricane problem at the start of the year, forced them to play on the road a lot. So just last year, a lot of things went wrong for Tulane. This year, I'm going to call their key game is going to be home against East Carolina. It's the second conference game. It's their first home conference game. So I think East Carolina is a beatable team for them. I think that's going to be their key game. At least play them close, assuming they lose to Houston on the road. Home against Eastern Carolina, I think, is going to be a key, determining factor for their season if they're going to be a team that upsets some of the top American teams, or if they're just going to end up in the basement again from the season before. In recruiting, they were 6 out of 11, so about a middle of the road team as far as recruit rankings go. And their program status, they're also a rebuild similar to Temple, but fixing the defense. That's their biggest concern. They had an okay offense, but sorry, there's like a fly buzzing around me. It's kind of annoying, but fixing the defense is key for Tulane, I believe. And their key player is going to be Michael Pratt, quarterback, sophomore, preseason third-team All-American for the American Conference, and that's him on the right of the screen here. He's a key player to watch for. Hopefully, for their sake, he has better numbers than last year, but, it's a rebuilding team, so they don't have a lot of talent there. He's a guy to watch. And at number 9, I've got Navy. Navy went 3-5 in the American last year, 4-8 record overall. Looking at their schedule here, the game I think that they are going to be, they've got kind of a weird schedule, but I'm going to say home against Tulsa, October 8th is going to be their key game. Tulsa, a team that they can beat. Still early enough in the season for Navy still to potentially, be in a bowl game. So getting a win against Tulsa. After that, they play at SMU and home against Houston. A few weeks later, they have Cincinnati, Notre Dame, UCF, Army. Like, those are hard games for Navy. I think that Tulsa game's a 50-50 game, could go either way since they're at home, and that's going to be their key game. Navy was 9th out of the 11 teams in their recruit rankings. I've got their program status as momentum from the Army win. So they beat Army at the end of the year last year after a bad season. Like I said, for Navy, they were 4-8. So not a good year for them, but they did beat Army, which is, the thing that they want to do most every year. So I carry that momentum from the end of the season win against Army, but just more consistent on offense. That's what I've noticed. They have to replace some of their key rushers because Navy is a run team for sure. So Levi is their quarterback. Hopefully he has a better year rushing than he did. I mean, he only threw 100 passes all year, but he's going to be a key guy just because all the options and, stuff that they run. Finally, here at number 8, I've got USF, my favorite team. I do have them jumping up from the standings. They were last year with just a 1-7 record in the American, 2-10. Now they played UCF really close at the end of last season. That was a heartbreaking loss for USF, but looking at their schedule here, it's a tough start. They can beat Howard, but BYU, Florida, Louisville, Eastern Carolina, Cincinnati, I think those could all be losses there. So I'm going to say their key one is going to be the Tulane home game on October 15th. Tulane's a team I had ranked 10th in my projection, so that's for sure a winnable game for them. If they're going to finish 8th in the conference, they have to beat Tulane at home, I think, because the schedule is pretty brutal. Obviously, UCF at the end there. I believe that's going to be the last time they play UCF for a little while since they're switching conferences. So that's going to be obviously a huge, rivalry game that we might not see for a little while. But key things with USF, they were 5th out of 11 in the 2021 recruit rankings. They're also a rebuilding team. I put future is bright here in a picture of the stadium. There's a lot of momentum going around with USF. They're getting a lot of new transfer players. They're building a new facility right now. It's, like half a mile that direction, literally, from where I am sitting right now. So that's going to be real nice from what it looks like. It's pretty close to being constructed. But the on-campus stadium's a huge thing that USF's been talking about for a while. They're starting to get funding now. There's been donors. There's a lot of proposed sites around campus. This is a mock-up picture here, but it's not going to happen soon. But these are the sort of things that you need to have a good team on the field, and you need to generate excitement for this stuff really to matter. So I think USF right now, this is a pivotal time for them. pivotal season for Jeff Scott, the head coach, too. But Jerry Bohannon, the transfer from Baylor, he's definitely their key player. I think he'll win the quarterback job, and he might give them the best quarterback they've had since Quentin Flowers. That's really been the biggest problem with USF is quarterback play. Just, it's so frustrating seeing guys get open and the quarterback just missing throws badly. So Jerry Bohannon comes from Baylor. They won the Big 12 last year. He's a good player, so he's the reason why I think they're going to make this jump up to 8th. Okay, at 7th here, I have Tulsa. They finished 6th in the conference last year, 5-3 record, 7-6 overall. And I've got their schedule posted up here. I will say I think maybe I had Navy's big game as at Tulsa. I can't remember, but I'm going to put Tulsa's big game at Navy. The 2 weeks before that, they've got Ole Miss and Cincinnati, which will be tough. So Navy is going to start their possible win streak. It'll be road, so that'll make things a little bit tougher. But Tulsa should, contend in that game. I've got that as their key game. They were dead last in the recruit rankings, so somebody has to be last in this, and it was Tulsa. However, they do have talent, and this is where the recruit rankings don't necessarily line up with actual talent because they had double-digit numbers. They were one of just like 2 or 3 teams that had double-digit player numbers on the preseason All-American list for the conference. So that's key. They had a first-round pick. Tyler Smith was drafted by the Cowboys. So that's just showing you Tulsa is becoming a place now where people can get drafted from. I think that's huge. That will bolster their recruit rankings. When you see players go in the first round, that's a big plus for schools. So they've got talent. They don't necessarily have like a superstar or anything like that on their team, but they've got guys all around on offense and defense that can play. At number 6 in the conference, I've got ECU. They were 5th last year, 5-3 in the conference, 7-5 overall. I know my, standings from this year aren't totally, different from last year, but that's just kind of how it is in college football. It takes time, but you can see major shifts. Like USF was at the top in 2016, 2017. Now they're at the bottom for a few years, so it can be quite drastic. But Eastern Carolina, surprising team from last year. They had a better record than people would have expected. I will have their key game home against UCF. They lost to UCF last year. It was a close game, but it was on the road. They get them at home this time. That could be a statement win for them. I'm not going to say they're going to beat Memphis or Tulane or USF or Navy, any of those. Those will be games. But if they can beat UCF, I think that'd bring a lot of momentum for ECU. They were 8th out of 11 in the recruit rankings from 2021. So sort of at the bottom here, but they've outperformed their recruit rankings. Their program status, I've got momentum from their first winning season since 2014. This was a seller team in the American. They were looked at along with UConn as like easy wins for teams, but they've started to get it going, and especially last year was a big year for them. With their first winning season. They're a run first team. Keaton Mitchell, their running back's really good. He's going to be their key player to watch, but shaky offensive line. That experts seem to think this offensive line is not very good. So watching the offensive line, protecting the quarterback, opening up holes, that's going to be an area I think that could determine Eastern Carolina's season, how good the offensive line plays. At number 5, I've got Memphis. Memphis was 7th last year, taking a huge step back from where they were contending for the American. But they went just 3-5 in the conference, 6-6 overall. I think they get better this year. That's why I've got them up to 5th. Looking at their schedule here, I think home against UCF, November 5th, will be their key game. And another, one of those games. I don't think Memphis is going to be beating Cincinnati and Houston and those teams. But if they can beat UCF, I think that will go a long way for how good of a season they had. They were 2nd out of 11 teams in the recruit rankings, and this is one of the better teams that's going to be staying in the American. A lot of the teams at the top are going to be leaving to join the Big 12, so that's why I think one of their program statuses be at the top of the new American. Next year, we're going to see the departure and the joining of a bunch of teams, so the American next year is going to look completely different than this year, but they have a chance to, be the new Kings, be the new Cincinnati / UCF of the American. But also not to fall apart post Mike Norvell, who left to Florida State. Ever since he's left, they've gotten worse and worse. So, Silverfield is their new head coach that they've brought in. And head coaching really matters for these middle conference teams here. Not to fall apart when a guy leaves and joins a big school. So if that happens, they could, be severely put back. Brandon Thomas is going to be their key player and bringing the run game back. That's something Memphis was known for. They've had guys drafted in the NFL at running back. But last year their run game was not what it was the years before, and that's, I think, going to be the big key for their season. If they can get their run game back to like 2018, 2019, that'll go a long way for Memphis in the conference. At number 4 here, I've got SMU, who was also 4th last year, 4-4 record, 8-4 overall. SMU is definitely an offensive team. They're going to score a lot of points. They're going to give up a lot of points. Looking at their schedule here, I will say the key game is going to be home against Cincinnati. I mean, that's a winnable game. I think they played Cincinnati fairly close last year. If they can upset Cincinnati, I think that'd be huge for SMU. They were 3rd out of 11 in the 2021 recruit rankings. So they've recruited better. And I've got for their program status, keep winning the transfer portal. They're located in Dallas, so lots of money being spent with the NIL deals in Texas and all across the South, but especially in a place like Dallas, that's a great market for NIL deals, which bring you in good players. So keep winning the transfer portal, keep recruiting good. These are things SMU needs to have a good season so they can, keep adding to their stock of talent. Their key player is going to be Rashee Rice. He's a wide receiver that leads a depleted wide receiver room in SMU, but he's first team All-American, so he is definitely their best receiver from last year. He's coming back, but they did lose some guys who graduated on or left the team, so Rashee Rice, for the way SMU plays, he's going to be big for them next season. At number 3 here, I've got UCF. They were also 3rd last year, 5-3 in the conference, 9-4 overall. The last season for them in the American, it's funny that 3 teams I've got leaving the American all are at the top 3. But for them, I will say home against Cincinnati is going to be their biggest game of the year, Saturday, October 29th here. Chance at home to beat Cincinnati, who's going to be a rival joining the Big 12 with them. They're going to keep playing each other, and I think that's a game where they could easily win it, and it's a game that they kind of need to win to, show their status. Hey, we're the best team joining the Big 12 now. Cincinnati, their great season was last year. If they can have a great season again, they're going to be tough to stop moving forward, I think. So beating Cincinnati there is going to be huge for them. They were 4th out of 11 in the 2021 recruit class. Their program status, kind of like I just mentioned, recruit and momentum going into the Big 12. Win some of these games. I don't know if they've got a non-conference big game. Not really. Louisville, Georgia Tech, some ACC teams, Florida Atlantic, they should win those games. So there's no, if they get into a bowl game against a good team, that would go a long way also. But a quarterback battle at UCF, Keene, who played for them last year, and Ole Miss transfer Plumlee, that's going to be, whoever wins that job is going to have a huge task to run Gus Malzahn's offense. Gus had an up and down season, kind of fell things kind of fell apart at the end there. So once again, a new coach in the American kind of struggling. I think Gus needs to have a better season than last year to get momentum and really keep this UCF team going. At number 2 now, I've got Cincinnati, who was a top 4 team in the college football playoff last year. However, I have them at number 2. I think there's a team better than them this year. They just lost so much talent. I mean, they had double-digit guys, I believe, drafted. Maybe not double-digit. That might be an exaggeration. I don't know. But they had a lot of guys drafted. Desmond Ridder, their quarterback, left, set all kinds of records in college football. He's gone. So this is a test year for Cincinnati. See how they do. They play Arkansas to start the year. That's going to be a big game. They should win it, but it's on the road. Arkansas is a good team, so that, for the big picture things, that's a huge game. Conference wise, they don't play Houston. I'll say at SMU is going to be their big game, which I think I said for SMU this is their game as well. Could be a high scoring game, but I want to see how they do against a high-powered offense like SMU has. And they were first out of 11 teams in their 2021 recruit rankings, so they're definitely recruiting the best in the American. We'll see how that translates going to the Big 12. And it should get a bump, for the future for the season that they had last year when they played Alabama. That's why I've got the picture here against Alabama. Like, that was so huge for them to be able to use in recruiting, transfer portal. Like, they're trying to establish themselves as a, tier 1 college football team. And it's not easy to do when you're coming from a, non-group of 5 or non-power 5 conference. But their key success, I think, win in the trenches. That's how they won the American last year. They just had guys in the trenches that were just better than the other teams. And then replacing Ridder, who was great for them, 3rd-round pick in the NFL draft, but set all kinds of records for him, been a staple of Cincinnati for as long as I can remember. It's going to be weird seeing them play without him, but that's why the quarterback battle is their key player. Friends from the team, Prater versus Bryant. Whoever wins that, it's got big shoulders to fill, or big shoes to fill, sorry. And it's going to be huge for determining how their season goes. At number 1 here, I've got Houston, who finished second last year. I've got them finishing first this year. I just think they're bringing back more talent than Cincinnati is. That's primarily why. They don't play each other in the regular season, which is disappointing. But I do think the conference championship will be Cincinnati versus Houston. Houston will win it. And their big game, I will say, is going to be at Memphis. Could be an upset alert for them, going on the road to play Memphis. If Memphis has a bounce back year like I think they will, that's a game that they have to win. And it could be a trap game for them if they overlook Memphis from how bad Memphis was last year. Now, this is the odd thing. They were just 7th out of 11 teams in 2021 recruit rankings, which is weird. I would have thought Houston would have been top 2 or 3, but cutting down on the interceptions for their quarterback, Clayton Tune, is going to be a huge thing. I think he had a great year, first team All-American, so he's projected to be the best QB next year in this conference. Just had a lot of interceptions last year. That's the sort of thing. If he can improve on that, I think Houston can win, beat Cincinnati and take over the number 1 spot. And bringing back the 6th best defense in college football. They, lost Logan Hall to the NFL draft to the Buccaneers, but I was shocked to see that they were the 6th best defense last year in college football in a conference that's heavy on offense. That's huge. Being able to stop the SMUs, UCFs, Memphises of the world, that's huge. If you can play good defense and get a lot of takeovers, which they were known for getting a lot of takeovers, bring back that defense, cut down on the turnovers. They should be a team that wins this conference, in my opinion. Now, I will say for this video and all videos going forward, I did not look at anyone else's projections. These are, purely my original thoughts on this. I didn't want to get influenced if I looked at a bunch of experts' projections and stuff. So I've got Houston number 1 in the conference. Let me know, guys, who you have number 1 in the American for next year? Do you think it's Houston? Do you think Cincinnati repeats? Do you think someone surprises and wins the division? But what else about my rankings do you agree with, disagree with? Let me know in the comments down below. And next week we will have the Pac-12. So next few weeks I'll be talking about the Pac-12. Hopefully you guys enjoy that and wait patiently for your team, if they're not in the Pac-12, to come up. And yeah, with all that being said, guys, remember, be clutch.